Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming to our May webinar. I can't believe it's May already.
I thought we were
um,
in June already. Yeah.
I know I was just doing April reporting earlier, so now I'm like all screwed up. But welcome to our May webinar. Today is really a fun one. Once a year, we do like a peek under the hood, peek behind the curtain. I say all different kinds of things. But we kind of do a demo, a live demo of usually different like underwriting steps, things like that. So we did one that was just kind of underwriting 101 2 years ago. Last year, we did one on finding land. And this year, we're talking about finding communities. So that's really the goal in the webinar today. It's meant to be interactive. So if you've got questions, feel free to ask them. We've got it so that you can turn on your camera and unmute. We don't do that in every webinar, but we do it in this one because we want to make sure that you can interact if you've got questions. Yeah, please feel free to ask along the way. As always, this is something that we'll be sharing on YouTube afterwards, but actually we won't be sharing everything on YouTube. So you get the exclusive by being here tonight. So give everybody else FOMO. If for some reason you've been recorded and you want that out of the YouTube recording, just message me, and we can make that happen. And I think those are my only disclaimers I have to share.
Awesome. Thank you, Sammy. Hi, everyone. My name is Salous. I lead the team Investream, one of the most beautiful teams in Houston, Texas, and all over the globe, actually. Today, like Sammy said, it's going to be a fun day. We're going to cover why we do what we do and where we look and how we look. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background and context first, and then we'll jump into an actual deal that we just secured. So we're going to show you a real deal that we worked on, our process, our thought process, our steps that we take, and how we find value and uncover value for our investors, even in this tough economy and tough market. We have fun every week. We meet every week with the team. We go through our deals. We call it the deal kitchen. That's actually a thing. And we play in the kitchen and we throw some ingredients and we have a nice meal and then we cook it, we taste it, we validate it, and then we serve it. That's kind of how we do our real estate investments. So today, first I'm gonna cover the traditional disclaimers if this works. So this information that we're presenting today is for educational purposes. We are not your financial advisor, nor your tax advisor. So please consult if you want to make any investment decision. But feel free to ask us questions. Like Sammy said, put it in the chat or raise your hand, unmute. I'll pause throughout the presentation today to make sure I give ample time for people to jump in. So please make it interactive. Let's have fun. All right. So I'll start with a very basic concept in any business, but it also applies to real estate. And you see and you hear a lot from business school to different successful business owners and corporates that you need to focus on the core and you need to have a very strong foundation and deep understanding of the market and deep army of skills and make sure that you focus on one vertical and grow from there, etc. And then so that's one school of thought and one big successful business approach. And then there's the niche. So what's the difference between a core and a niche? That's what we're going to cover early on. And then we'll talk about why we pick the asset class that we work, classes that we work and we work on, and we search and we serve. And then why we choose certain locations for these specific asset classes and how we think about that sort of Venn diagram of location, asset class, money, and growth. And so, you know, investing in the core matters, and it's the standard, I would say, not the exception. It helps any organization, whether it's a business or real estate development firm or acquisitions firm, to build a stronger muscle. Repetition creates strength. creates economies of scale. It improves processes, it fine-tunes operations, and it's a volume game. So it's a volume game. You work it, you work it, you work it, and you optimize margins as you grow. So it's a nice, steady approach. A lot of real estate investing, real development firms or investment firms will tell you we are vertically integrated. We've been doing this for 20 years. That's all we do. That's strength, and that's real. And if they specialize in multifamily or retail or medical office buildings, again, repetition, refinement, experience, and eventually expanding margins. The problem with that approach is it's one vertical. So if the market shifts, then a lot of these organizations have plenty of staff, plenty of processes that built over the year. And that makes people less um, nimble. It would make it slower to adjust to market, slower to adjust to dynamics. And we're in the midst of the most crazy dynamics in terms of economy shifts, in terms of real estate opportunities, high inflation, high interest rate, relatively high interest rate. Um, we have tariffs, we have supply chain issues. So it makes everything more difficult. So again, investing in the core is a great thing. I highly recommend it for anyone who wants to specialize in anything. We started Investream in 2021. 2022 showed up very early to us, early in the journey. So allowed us to start thinking what else is out there. We're not in the empire building exercise, the market. We don't have tailwinds. We're not in a easy market. So how can we make something work? So we started in multifamily like everybody else did. Our first few deals were all apartment complexes in Houston. So very focused, niche, class B, um, sort of in the middle, not blue collar, not white collar, very niche, very defined buy box. And then as we started working those, the margins started to shrink. It was harder to get funding, and operations became more difficult. So we started expanding. Okay, what areas can we work on? And my criteria were very just like again in any business, if you focus on niche, that's normally premium, less competitive. So that's one of the feature. It's more complex. Now you're trying to be a horizontal organization, so you can have multiple versions of how you operate. It's definitely less competitive, lower volume, but higher margin. So you see this in businesses, but you see it also in real estate. And what's nice about it though, it's kind of harder to get in. So if you don't know how to do it, that's a natural barrier to entry. So the barrier to entry saves you from competition. The skills saves you from competition. It's lower volume, but it's a higher margin. And for us, that was perfect because we were built to be nimble by force. It forced us to see and find deals that make sense in the midst of this tough economy and tough market, but also allowed us to become more and more niche and more nimble. And the more nimble you are, the more, you can adjust to the market, you can play when others are on the sidelines, etc. So that's how we grew. And over the years, we started saying, okay, what is our sweet spot? We looked at building the capability of the team, and we have a very diverse team with different backgrounds and different skill sets. We hired the experts. We're adjacent to the core, so we're not completely departing from what we already built in the vertical that we started in, which is residential. So you'll see in residential, instead of doing apartments, we're now doing 55 plus active senior living. Still residential, but it's a little different. We're doing built to rent, still residential, but it's different. Not too different. We call it adjacent to the core, and we enjoy that premium return. So the formula is very simple. It's low supply, high demand, and premium rent with from strong credit tenants. And that's how we can become recession resilient. This is how we continue to operate in this tough economy. So that's what we feel have become, especially in the last couple of years, our sweet spot. We became the niche development. The other thing about niche development, you have to develop it because sometimes it doesn't exist. So you'll see a lot of focus for us to create something that works. And unfortunately, that means that we may not find it. It'd be harder to acquire it. Every time we talk about how we're building our 55 plus communities, we say, hey, can we buy one? And we look and we look and we look and we don't find what we're looking for. There's a lot of assisted living, for example, but there's not a lot of 55 plus, especially the lifestyle kind that is full of amenities and full of activities as well. So they're harder to find, which is good. It checks the box, low supply. The demand is there, and we always look for demand, and we'll talk more about demand. And then it does meet that premium rent and premium returns for our investors. So I'll cover these really quickly. We're not going to spend a lot of times. We have different webinars for every single asset class. Sammy can link those and we'll share those also on YouTube. But we have one specifically for build to rent. We have 55 plus. We have the cream of the crops, which is how we're picking the best out of every asset class that we can work in. But I'll recap some of these points that we covered in previous webinars. So we'll start with the build to rent. So build to rent communities are simply a residential community that is built for rental from day one. So they look like a normal residential neighborhood, but they're not for sale. And they have nice amenities. So you get the best out of an apartment lifestyle in terms of amenities, clubhouse, the community amenities in general. You get the maintenance-free aspect of a rental, but you live in a house. You don't, so it's like a hybrid between owning a real house in a real community in a good school district, but maybe you can't afford to buy one. Typically, they're for starter families in good school districts where people can't afford to buy a house, but still want their kids to go to good schools. And most of these communities, we build them in a way that people can still buy these units if they really enjoy what the family and the lifestyle they built in that area. Or they can graduate into buying a house eventually. So it's a house experience in a sort of a community amenity rich. So it gives financial flexibility for the tenants. They can always leave, especially if they're travelers, career driven, they don't want to commit to a house. A lot of the new generations, they actually consider that a good thing. Doesn't make sense for us maybe in the late stage of millennials. We build them where it's like there's always an office or two in every unit. So even if it's two spouses working remotely, they're built now fit for purpose, especially the post-COVID days. And then it's in less dense neighborhoods. So it's not your new apartments that looks like a hotel. That weird experience. Even in Class A apartments, you don't get that. It's very family friendly, etc. Typically, we always do them as three bedrooms, two bath, two car garages with a front or backyard or both. So they look like a nice townhome. Um, Average size is 14 to 16, sometimes 2,000 square foot. They're not small, they're decent. Other demands, I talked about millennials and the generations Z even are becoming renters by choice, not just by force. I think it's both. Areas that you can't really buy in that you want to live in are harder to buy. Generally, most of the US MSAs are seeing more and more renters and mostly by force, but the newer generation they kind of see this as an opportunity given the flexibility. I talked about access to greater amenities, outdoor spaces, etc. And then there's alternatives to home ownership. but some of those you can always buy the unit eventually, so gives some flexibility there. Some pros and cons about that. Removes the stigma of renting, provide a better living experience, attracts the people that are looking for that. And typically, these people love the place and they take care of the units, which is great for us and our investors. So they're not gonna jump between apartments and price shop. They're gonna stick, and that's a good thing. Saves a lot from operational cost, and also they take care of the house as if it's theirs. And cap rates is lower than Class A apartments and rent is higher. And so one drives the other. So the rent is higher than living in a very fancy Class A apartments, and that drives investments when we exit. So the PE shops and the big institutional funds, they love to buy these turnkey. All right, barrier to entry. It's niche. You have to know what you're doing. It's not your standard single family tiny homes environment. It's not apartments, so it's a little bit niche. There's some requirements that we normally have to overcome in terms of zoning, and it takes a little longer to build than building an apartment. It costs more. It's definitely less efficient in terms of density, in terms of construction costs. We like to make them on the nicer side, especially on the finishes because it's more roofs, more slabs, more green spaces. So it's not as efficient as building a weird looking hotel apartment. But investors love them. Outsized rent and the growth is here. So talk about demand. This is hot. We have a project in Melissa, Texas, in North McKinney, and we're leasing them as fast as we're building them. The rent is above pro forma, and we just can't keep up with the demand actually, which is great. Vacancy almost non-existent. Net absorption, which is basically how fast can we lease these, um, and people stay when they come. You get diverse consumer sets. We build them for families, but you never know. You see travelers, meaning economy, driven decisions or job-driven decisions. They come in and out. They also pay premium if they want to have a nice experience. So we get a little bit of a different audience, but mainly built for the starter families. And yes, the institutional funds are looking more and more for BTR, but relatively speaking, still not much supply in the major MSAs. All right, so active senior, 55 plus specifically, just a little bit of data from Oklahoma City. The rent much higher than a Class A apartments. They're in the $2.30 a square foot and higher, compared to like a 1.75 to $2 for Class A apartments. This is the same case in Houston and Dallas. Those are the three markets that we really love, and we'll talk about that. Vacancy is much lower. It's not an apartment complex. And there's actually much higher stickiness here because they're lifestyle based. We kind of bring in the Florida vibe to the Midwest and the South Side. And they're lifestyle rich, amenity rich, activity rich. People go there because they want to. And the advantage there is that we know the markets, we know where to build them. We've done extensive research of how much supply there is. I think in the whole Oklahoma City metro area, there's only 5 communities that are what we're building. Houston, they're probably less than 10 the way we're building them. It's insane. Dallas, there's more, but it's still extremely low supply. We know residential very well. This is a spinoff from multifamily, and we know how to build them. So it's not vastly different from our experience. I talked about this demand supply mismatch, which is a perfect sweet spot. And when we look at those, you know, we built the teams over the years. We're horizontal in nature. We work with third-party experts that are the best in any market. So we have the choice to changing property management if they're not doing great. We work with seasoned developers and general contractors. So we're always shopping and building those long-term relationships. And if we don't like something, we can always switch. So that gives us flexibility. So I want to clarify what 55 plus is not. It's not assisted living, which means we don't do we don't have medical services, we don't have nurses, we don't have catering. It's not a continuum of care, it's not a memory care. Those have their own special complex operations and people make money on them. There's also Medicaid, Medicare in the picture in terms of rent control, things like that. That's not what we want to be. We don't want to again be in a vertical where we build our own property management, nursing, and catering. We don't want to be in a restaurant operation as well. What it can be, it's a replacement. It can be a single family community. It can be duplex. It can be multifamily. We don't do them that way. We like to keep them low density, single story, car garage, very intimate, very rich in amenities and services, have a lot of communal spaces. We target middle market, so we don't go too fancy, but also they are nice and rich in lifestyle and they're very immune to recessions. Those are people who want to live here by choice and they want to pay premium for that experience. So you deal with a lot of people who are um, basically we're telling them, hey, you don't downsize in a smaller house, downsize in a lifestyle rich community. All right, so those are two examples of niches. We do the same thing with office, but we're not going to cover office quickly. Just office, we do medical office buildings. We love the doctors. A good majority of our investors are medical doctors. Our partners are doctors. We know medicine very, very well. We know what it takes to bring good tenants and keep good tenants and satisfy the good tenants. Medical office buildings, again. Um, Relatively lower supply. I mean, it's they're out there, but relatively lower supply, very specialized, premium rent and demand. I mean, talk about like shortages in the medical industry. There's so much demand that we can't keep up satisfying that. So again, niche in offices, we only do medical office buildings. Niche in industrial, which is the project that I'm going to demo today, is flex space, is light industrial. We like that space. Supply is not catching up still, although they're building more and more of those, and demand's still high. And people there want to have a good transition as they grow their business. So people can't afford a warehouse, but they want a small warehouse. Then they come in, they grow their business, and once they feel that they want to outsize what we offer, then we can give them even a bigger building, a full warehouse, for example. Um, Next few points that I want to cover quickly is why focus on Texas and Oklahoma as well. We talked about this in our previous maybe a month or two ago now. Um, Texas is growing like crazy. 500,000 new residents just in 2025. Fastest growing large state in the nation, one of the hottest zip codes, Houston Triangle. There's so much evidence, and I encourage you to watch that. Texas is the new Golden State. I forgot, Sammy, what what the title was.
The new gold
Sammy,
rush.
the
Yeah.
new gold rush in Texas, yes. So there's more trends for home buying in Texas, despite that it became more and more expensive. The movement into the suburban areas and even the rural areas is a reality in Texas now, especially in the bigger MSAs in the North Houston, Northwest Houston, Southwest Houston. Growth is crazy. I'll show you a heat map of how much Houston grew just in the last decade. Construction is not keeping up despite everything. They're trying to make things more affordable and all the incentives. Still, construction is not keeping up. A lot of developers are sitting on the sidelines because the math is not mathing, and it's a very difficult situation. Texas land is so hot that a lot of foreign investors from countries that we're not friendly with are buying, and there's a lot of bills introduced already trying to prevent that. Here's a heat map of showing the potential growth for Houston, and it's almost going to double in size within 3 decades. It's already expanded like crazy in the last decade or so. The zip code I live in is, I think, this is the fastest growing zip code in the nation. And I picked that location for good reasons. It's a place that I wanted to be connected to the different areas of the city, different access to highways, access to good schools, and then a huge valuation appreciation in the last few years. It's a business-friendly state. Texas has the highest number of all the Fortune 500 companies in the nation. Houston is the second. That blew my mind. Um, Dallas is crazy. Headquarters are relocating, energy, real businesses, headquarters. Dallas kind of picks up the headquarters. Houston is energy, but now more diversified with health sciences and trade is always massive. Dallas gained 100 corporate headquarters just in the last few years. Huge expansion. And Austin kind of plays around, the cute businesses and very innovation, basically innovation hub. It is a little bit correcting now. It's correcting because it grew exponentially, and that's also great because Texas is real. It doesn't continue to grow if it doesn't make sense. Our approach in Texas is very simple. So we decided where we're going to work, where do we have team, boots on the ground, what zip codes make sense. At one point, we had a very massive laminate map of Houston MSA, and we were going zip code by zip code, and we studied those metrics. We looked at, and I'll show you a couple of examples in the demo. We look at traffic, we look at migration, we look at growth, rooftop permits. It's just insanity. Northwest Houston, North Houston, North Dallas are seeing crazy amount of growth, and that's where we want to play. So we buy in the outskirts of the MSAs. We look for the middle ground. We don't go too custom or too basic. I talked about the growth in Houston. And as we're doing this more and more, we're becoming naturally a land developer. So we're looking now, 80% of our acquisitions criteria is land. We look for land that fit those niche asset classes. And every growth that happened in anyone who owned land over the years was because of land. It's a Walmart story, it's a McDonald's story, it's every story. And now the new story in Texas is HEB. HEB is following the Walmart. So look, they buy big pieces of land and then they start selling everything around them. And Melissa, Texas, I don't know, 10 years ago was way out there. Now it's almost like in the middle of Dallas. And houses in Melissa, Texas are already north of 800,000. And so it's becoming McKinney 2.0 in a way. And that used to be agriculture farmland and now it's a suburb. So we moved from farmland to suburb within a decade, and that's insane. All right, so we'll start with I'm going to share a few tools and an actual deal that we worked on recently. We'll talk about a little bit of our process. But generally, there's a lot of free tools that you can use. We use some free tools, some paid tools. We love LoopNet, we love CoStar, and we love different tools that we use. But LoopNet is free and it's easy. So the first thing we do is what do we want to do? Are we looking, for office, retail, industrial, or are we looking for land? So we'll start with the land. And we'll say Houston. And you can create different filters and different criteria to make sure that the system sends you automated feed. We work with the top agents in the nation. So 80/20 rule is great, applies to agents too. The good agents normally list 80% of the good deals. So you need to just find the good agents, work with them. You can do your LoopNet, you can search on your own. There's a lot of cool tools now that allows you to find things on your own. but we like agents that know what they're doing and they work on those. So first thing we do is we look at that and we say, okay, we find this piece of land. We are in the northwest of Houston. Let's go look at all of these deals. We follow the 99 corridor, especially in the northwest quadrant. We like Conroe and Willis. Um, we like Richmond, we like Rosenberg, and now going down and down into Highway 36 in Needville. We also like the future Highway 99 going into Iowa Colony and Liverpool, back into completing the loop. So that is huge for us, especially in the Manville, Iowa Colony area, where 288 is intersecting with Highway 6, but also in the future 99 will be going through this area on the south side. So those are all great areas that we hunt in. We don't look on the east. We don't look in crowded area. We are in the suburbs, like I mentioned earlier. So the moment we find something we like, here's a flyer that was sent to us by the broker. We look at it. I'm like, okay, this is in a good area on Highway 99 on the west side, so it checks the box. We send our agents criteria of what size of a property we like for what asset class in what area is very specific and for what price range. So they have very specific criteria when they send us the deals. So this one made sense on a first glance, 6.5 acres around an industrial town. They're building a lot of industrial warehouses, about 2.2 million square foot, but those are big, massive tilt-up concrete type of industrial parks. Ellison is one of the fastest growing neighborhoods in the North Katy area. There's so much going on. I'll show you on the map how much development is happening even west of this area. So close to the highway, access to the highway, everything checks the box on the first glance. This is listed by Coldwell, so big agent. They normally share taxes and demographics, so they give you some information. The first thing we looked at is like, oh, it looks too slim. Can we actually develop something here? Um, we like the road, Beckendorf, service road into the highway. So overall looks good. There's a massive retail development, office development off of 529 and 99. There's a big Target. They're building a future HEB there. That's always a good sign. You have established neighborhoods, school systems, and continuous rooftop development. And you still have the other side that was already established, so it's not far. So the first question now we have is, what does this fit? It's a slim piece of land. We can't do residential. This is not a build to rent. This is more industrial. So, okay, this seems to be a flex space potential. We jump into Google Maps and we look at, what's going on. Obviously, Google Maps sometimes is delayed. We have FedEx Ground here. This is the retail area of 529. This is where the massive builders first choice built their massive warehouse here, and they continue to build those. There's more rooftops happening, continuous development, even a couple of miles west, and it's happening and happening and happening. So that means that we're going to have more rooftops, which is great. You want flex space development next to where the people live. So industrial in nature, but very close to residences. And most of our flex space tenants are service businesses that serves these communities. They just happen to not love um, shopping centers. They don't want a shopping center bay. They want maybe a big warehouse with a small office that is close to home, but also close to the communities they serve. So location-wise, solid. Sometimes we look at Google Earth to do, more focused, maybe perimeter measurement and things like that. But in this case, the seller had a very recent survey in January 2025. So we took it as is. We don't need to double check that. We look at the boundaries. We look at the topography. All numbers that you can't see here are relatively the same. So it's 141 and it doesn't slope. So it's pretty flat. So we look at that. We see if there's any easement issues that we have to deal with. So that's all first glance. Second thing we do is we look at the who owns it. So we try to find out like who owned the land. Is this owned by an entity? Is this owned by an individual? How many other pieces of land they own? Is this going to enable us to negotiate? Is it hard to negotiate? Are they going to be very rigid on it? So here's the piece of land, and we can see who owns it, what the appraisal value is for taxes, are they caught up on taxes, all the things that are public information. So that's a second or third check. We check if it's a flood zone, and in this area, it does show, here's 99 on Bickendorf. It does show that it's a 100-year floodplain. 100-year in Houston is very common, especially after Harvey. So as long as it's not dark blue and it's proper floodway, we're okay with it. And especially if it's flex space, we would be more hesitant if it was a residential community, and because it would require more. But at least now we know who the owner is, how much it should be. Is there any restrictions? Is there any problems? The next thing we do, obviously, we know this is a hot area, but we look at traffic count just to see. But this area is very hot, and we know that. But we look at traffic count on the highway, we look at traffic count on Bickendorf, Service Road, etc. This is more meaningful for retail and office buildings because they want that visibility and that traffic. But for flex space, people find them by Googling them. Nobody needs to know where their tent shop is by looking at a sign. They would actually Google it and see the reviews and go there, for example. For some of our projects, obviously, we look at the demographics. We like Justice Map, but there's other tools that we use, shows the demographics from an income point of view as well. Um, we also check the mud districts, like is this an area where it's served by an existing mud district or not? So here's Bickendorf, and as you can see, our piece of land is not served. There's one just north of us, and there's one south of us, and the piece of land is right here. So that is a problem. So we need to figure something out here and understand, is this going to be cost prohibitive? Do we have to dig our own water well, septic tank? Is this commercial project? So how much is it going to be? So we start estimating those to know how much to offer on a piece of land. We know it's in the floodplain, so we need to also consider that. And then we still haven't made an offer here. So I'm just preparing you for the screening process. We actually go and work with an engineering firm and say, okay, it is a floodplain. We'll probably have to do a big detention area, which the civil engineering firm did this back of a napkin design with the easements and in place and said, okay, we have two potentials. One is a few buildings that are single tenants. So here in this scenario, they created, let me zoom in so you can see it. They created six buildings with number five and six being maybe dual tenants or big tenant, a detention area that will take care of all the water requirements. And it would gonna give us around 95,000 square foot of buildable space in a 6.5 acres. If we choose to make a multi-tenant, kind of like what I call the shopping center of industrial, these are your smaller electrician, plumber, CrossFit gym, remodeler, etc. Then that's a nice layout with good parking, and it's going to give us around 81,000 square foot. So we're going to pick the worst case scenario when we do the underwriting and say, you know what? we'll go with the 81 to see if this piece of land still makes sense for us. This doesn't require a lot of investments from our side. This is just a back of a napkin calculation, making sure that we know how much can we build in such a piece of land. All right, let me go now to the actual underwriting. So we jump into, and let me know if you see my full screen Excel. Sorry, it's going to be busy, but it will make sense, I promise. So the first thing we look at is, okay, so what do we, how long is going to be the project? We think it's going to be a 4-year project. We plug in the square footage that we know now this lot can handle, and then we do a comps analysis. So we look around the area and say how, again, supply, demand, and rent. So we look and verify the rent in the area. If we build this, what does the market allow for rent? How does the vacancy look like? The supply, the demand, rent, vacancy, and we actually go building by building. So we identify them, we go building by building, and we qualify them. We say, hey, these are big ones. They're not really a good comp, but this one is a good comp, and we want to match this one. And we have some action items as we meet on these deals. And then we look at sales comp. How much are they selling for? What would be the exit when we get to that level, to that point? Then we work with the agents and they send us their own comps. So we do our own homework, trust and verify, and we ask for the agents. And we try to get agents that are not going to be the seller on the seller side, but more as much impartial as possible. Agents are never impartial. Sorry, agents. But at least you trust and verify. Thank you for the data, but we'll verify it ourselves. So we'll take that data and we'll decide what does that area handle. If we do a single tenant, we've identified that it can handle $14 a square foot for the rent and $15 if it's a multi-tenant, smaller footprint type of tenants. Then we look at, okay, how long is going to take us to lease it? So we say, okay, if we build it, if we start building after 9 months of acquisition and it takes us 20 months to build the whole thing and start leasing after that, how does it look? Is it triple net? Is it not? What are the fees? We make some exit assumptions as well based on our research. So we plan to hold it for 4 years. And our CoStar analysis tell us that our cap rate is going to be 7.5%. And this is going to be in 2030. This is when we fully exit the project. And so you can see here, we start plugging these assumptions that are market-based, research-based, not our wishful thinking. Then we make some assumptions on the debt. What's the interest rate in the market? What can we get out of today's market, working with our local banks or mortgage brokers or lending brokers, etc. We work on the assumptions of the construction. And again, this is still, I know I'm going fast, but this is still back of a napkin conversation. This is just for us to make an offer. And so what we do here is and say, okay, if we make a 950 offer, we'll just throw a number. And obviously they ask for 1.6, so it's kind of ridiculous. And then we go through just the high level. We don't plug all the detailed numbers, so just make some rule of thumbs. We're gonna pay commissions to lease these buildings, and we're gonna put some soft costs into engineering and architecture and permitting, and it's gonna cost us $105 to build with 10% contingency. Again, these are rules of thumbs that we built over the years, and it's gonna finance it for this and make that. And all of that combined gets us to this summary page. Summary page starts with, okay, if we pay $950 for the land, it's about $11 per buildable square footage. That's about, I think what it was about $3.38 a foot of raw land. but it's going to cost us $11 per buildable square foot. If we put in $9 for soft cost, including commission, hard cost 116, finance. Here we didn't put any reserves. We normally add reserves. We know how much we're building, about 32%. We went with a 90,000 assumption because we like the single tenant. Oh, let me pause here. We liked single tenant more for that area because a little more industrial than we like. So it doesn't fit sort of the bougie CrossFit gym to be in a mass next to a massive warehouse. So it's a little bit of an industrial area, and we said we want to stay in the single tenant, more established businesses with yards, with docking, etc. So that's why we went with the 90,000 here. You see our loan assumptions. Oh, before I go, oh yeah, loan assumptions. Here's the interest. Interest only for a year, loan for 4 years. The loan amount is going to be 8.5 million. The equity required for this project is about 4 million. We also look at our exit assumption. So if we lease this at over the next 4 years, this is where the net income is going to be, net operating income. At this assumption that was verified by CoStar, and obviously some of this is crystal ball, but still, it's a good crystal ball, and some fees, etc., we're going to exit the project at $18 million. And if we do that, if you see the math, it cost us $12 million to build, 12.7. We're going to sell it for 18 and a half. We're not selling any piece of land. And this is how much our investors would make based on this assumptions. Again, back of a napkin, early pass. So this shows us that our investors will double their money in 4 years and shows you the IRR, average cash on cash, etc. What this does for us is allows us to see, do we want to make an offer or not? It's a very simple question. And based on this, this looks good. We like the construction projects to be in the 20 to 25% projected returns. Nothing's guaranteed. We made a lot of assumptions backed by data, but this is what we start with. So we'll say, okay, you know what? Obviously, we do some sensitivity. We play around with vacancy. We play around with maybe we can't build 90,000. Maybe we build less. Maybe it will cost a little more to build something. Maybe we'll bump up the reserves. So we do some sensitivity analysis. We push the rent down, see if it still makes sense. And ultimately, we'll say, okay, you know what? 950 seems right. Although they were asking for 1.6 million, if you saw. The tax valuation, if you notice, I was quick, it was 853 or something like that. So that's what we do on the back of a napkin. Obviously, if we buy this deal, we will come back and refine this and make it extremely high resolution, and we'll pay for engineers and we'll pay for architects and we'll pay for um, reports, actual market reports, and refine our numbers more and more. And only then we show that deal to our investors. So this is back of napkin, we make an offer. And one thing that we had to consider, remember I told you this was a floodplain. The engineering firm said we're all right with that detention pond. And then the second thing was, can we actually do what is it going to cost us to do a water well and a septic tank? And that's the second part. And so we estimated this will cost us around $250,000. So we went to the seller and started with that. Said, hey, your land is great, but you know it's not served. So we need to plan for a water well and septic tank at a commercial grade, not at a house level. And we've done some water calculation. Now, behind the scene, we're reaching out to the mud districts and saying, hey, can you annex us? And we're orphans here and we need your help. And we're doing industrial. It's not gonna require a lot of water. It's not really a big deal. We're not residential. We don't need, we're not building 300 homes. It's only 6 buildings. Industrial doesn't require a lot of water. And the first answer we got from the mud district, they said, no, sorry, we don't have capacity. So we said, okay, we're gonna go with the offer that we're not gonna get be served, and we're gonna have to dig our wells and septic tanks. Negotiated that. They went down to 1.2 million. A previous buyer who had the project under contract have backed out of the project and never closed. So the seller was conditioned. Obviously, I didn't tell you about our kitchen. We look at 100 deals a year to pick 4 or 5 for our investors. So this is how rigorous we are when it comes to our process. And we saw this deal some 9 months ago or 6 months ago when they were actually asking for 1.6 million. And we said, no, it's not going to work. And then we came back and said, what are you guys thinking now that one of the buyers backed up? And the agent called us and said, hey, the buyer backed up. Do you want to be plan B? So we love plan Bs. We don't like to be the first in line. We always like to be the second in line most of the time. And we made a ridiculous offer and they started talking. So I said, okay, great. I have some traction here. So we showed them all the evidence, all the market, all our costs, or this is what we're dealing with, and this is what's going to make it work for us. And we don't shy away from doing this. I normally send these files to the broker. I was like, show it to the seller. I mean, we're not lowballing here for the sake of lowballing. We have a business plan. We're in a business to make money for our investors and for ourselves, and this is what our math says. And please say where we're wrong. As, you know, tax says that it should be here, and market says should be there, and if you want to keep the land, great. If you want to sell it, this was our offer. Back and forth a couple of months, and then eventually they accept our offer at 850. Cash offer at 850. So we even paid less than what the pro forma told us to make. And if you think about, they started at 1.6 million and they sold at 850. That was a steal. And this is a deal that is under contract and we'll be presenting to our investors soon. We'll mask some of this data in the future to make sure that we don't say projected returns at our back of a napkin, but it's a good starting point for us and we feel like it's an amazing experience. The bonus comes from the experience. So the bonus is we're talking to a MUD president to see if they can actually annex the lot. So that will save us huge amount of money because now we're actually going to be served, hopefully, knock on wood, by that MUD. And we don't need to do all the planned expenses. Now, we didn't tell this to the seller because it's not guaranteed, but at least it's our plan B, our plan A until for proven otherwise. I'll show you just an example of our board. We have a land hunt board. We walk through these deals. Is it active? Are we underwriting it? What's the priority? How fast can we move? Did we make an offer? Is it still in screening stage? Did we close it? And we work through this on a weekly basis. Like I said, our ratio is typically 100 deals to pick up 4 or 5. I mean, 100 to make offers on maybe 10, 15 to pick up 4 or 5 at the end of the year. We do the same thing with deal flow, which is actually acquisitions. Like I told you, this year we're not doing a lot of acquisitions. Our main focus on acquisitions is medical office buildings specifically for 2026. So majority of what we do is land deals. With that, I'll pause and I'll take questions.
So we've got one question in the chat. I'm not sure if Esma is still around. I think she left. But she said, you've shared a lot about the criteria you use to identify opportunities. When more than one project meets those criteria, how do you make the final go or no-go decision? What carries the most weight? And is there a qualitative factor beyond the numbers that often influences your final decision?
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
to feel good about it. Let's start there. If I don't feel good about the project, we're not pursuing it. So there is, you call this a gut feel, you call it experience. Not everything is going to be math based. We had to first, are we honest? Does this fit the box that we said we're going to focus on, which was market research, and we defined it and we told the brokers, and that's what's going to make us money. So yes or no? We've done the screening. We're ready to make an offer. We make the offer. We don't make the decision before we make the offer. And then let's say we have a couple of acceptances, then this is us trying to stage it. So sometimes we stagger them. Sometimes we actually get, Amber knows this. I secured 3 deals in Q4 last year, but we staged it. We staged it. We work with the seller to say we're going to close this one here, this one here, this one here. And sometimes we sweeten the money to make sure that they give us more time to stagger them. The way we like to do business is we don't like to work on two parallel projects at the same time. Generally speaking, we work one project a quarter, generally speaking. But in land, it takes time to actually decide if the land due diligence is good. Sometimes we extend the closing because we don't have all the answers, especially if it's like an inheritance property where we have to deal with different entities selling the property or different families. Sometimes it's a mud conversation. And we build these terms into the contract to say if we extend closing, we will pay you non-refundable money, and we agree on this upfront, so we don't have to renegotiate or fight or anything, or have any disagreements. So we say, hey, we're going to close in 3 months, but hey, should we extend, you'll make some sweet money. So at least if we back out, we're going to lose some money. So there's a little bit of staggering, and there's a bit of gut feeling, which gut feeling, I believe in gut feeling, it's experience. It's your body telling you that this is a good deal after you do the math. So I don't get stuck in analysis paralysis. We're not going to study it more. We're going to make two offers. If both are good, we're going to pick them up and maybe stagger the execution, if that makes sense.
Al, I think you did an amazing job.
Thanks for the support.
I guess, well, my only question, how many of these projects, and maybe I kind of got in 15 minutes late because I was finishing cooking dinner, but how many have you done already? And were you showing any of those, or was that some of the projects you were showing?
So I just showed one use case that we worked on recently, and they will be actually available for investors to look at.
Okay,
But yeah, we've done 7 construction projects and 4 acquisitions to date, so 11 projects total.
nice.
And in our team, with the experiences that we have more than 40 years
So,
worth of development.
oh my,
Convinced my Uncle Wes to join our party, and
there
he
you go.
developed so many IHOPs and so many retails and multifamily back in the days as well. So we have the team to execute, but we try to grow responsibly too, so we're not stretched thin as well.
Yes. Yeah, I appreciate that. And kind of what you said too. If the project feels good to you, then you like that too.
Yeah. Wes says a nice thing. It says like if you have butterflies,
Yeah.
when the math is math, everything checks, the experts look at it, everything looks good, then you just
Yeah.
have to be excited about it.
I like too how you do the single family homes and like you said, not or duplexes, not the big multifamily. That's nice. I think people do like that and do appreciate that.
And they make more money these days, at least.
That's good. That's good to hear.
Yes, yes. Now that's not the home builders. The home builders are in trouble. If you want
Yeah,
to
I
buy
know.
discounted homes, go buy an inventory home from a home builder. This is the time to scoop some of those. They're
It's
offering
true.
all kinds of interest buy downs and
They
um
really are. I
and
know.
and and heavy discounts too because they're sitting on inventory and they're paying interest on those. So
It's crazy. I know. I see these ads and they're like 4.99 for the life of the loan. I'm like, how are they doing that? But then
yeah.
if you read the fine print, it's like it has to close in 15 days. And it's like, okay, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, if someone wants to be active, I encourage you to buy a new house, not an
Yeah,
old house.
true. True,
Awesome. Thank you,
true.
Lisa.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us on a late Thursday night. I appreciate your presence. It was a fun experience for us to share with you what we do behind the scene and how we find a needle in a haystack. And hope to see you in the next webinar. A nice variety of webinars coming your way. Appreciate your presence. Have a great night.
Thanks, Al.